Hey everybody, Dr. Dan here, and I am your professor for History 1070, which is called the Contemporary World here at the University of Toledo. And Contemporary World means, I think the catalog description says 1900 forward, so the last century, the 20th century. But we're actually going to start around mid 1800s, but not too much, so it'll be quick. But anyway, I'll get into the course introduction, and before I start, I'm going to set my famous timer to 12 minutes, and I never pay any attention to this anyway, and I can tell you this video will be about 12 to 13 minutes, so I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. So what do we need to do? So first of all, this is the contemporary world, so it's world history for the past, 100, 200 years, somewhere in there. So it'll be kind of fun. And for me, a lot of it I've lived through, unfortunately. So some of it's not really history to me. I'm out of the corner of my eyes as I'm looking into the camera. I'm looking at a textbook, and it's got one of the jetliners flying into the World Trade Towers, and so that's 2001, and that's 19 years ago. So it's time goes fast when you get old. But anyway, if you don't have the book yet, this is the first thing that we need to cover. If you don't have the book yet, you need to get it as soon as you can, and it is an ebook, and it's called Contemporary World History, and it's available at the UT bookstore, and there may be a non-ebook available. I don't know, but all I know is I'm using the ebook, and I'm just looking at it here. It's called 7th edition Contemporary World History, and there's a picture of, it looks like two Eastern or Asian women in some traditional headdress looking at a cell phone. So it's by Cengage. It's a good book, and again, I'm using the ebook, so that's what I recommend. And I recommend you rent it. And I'm sorry you have to spend money on it, but we need to have a book. So get the book. If you don't have it, you're going to need it for week 2. And the reason you're going to need it for week 2 is because almost every week you have something you have to do, which is typically a quiz or an essay. So this entire class consists of 8 quizzes and 3 essays. Every quiz is worth 50 points. Every essay is worth 200 points. The essays are very short, a couple of paragraphs, and usually I give you a very specific rubric that you can see what's required of you for the writing. So don't stress out about those, but they are important. And then the quizzes are just kind of low stakes exercises to make sure that we read our material, and to make sure that we can answer some basic questions as we go through the course. And you'll see something called student learning outcomes on the syllabus. That's sort of the big picture things that we're supposed to be learning, like information literacy and the ability to understand other cultures and that sort of thing. So there's a purpose behind this. I'm just not like, hey, here's a book, read it, have fun. We're trying to get something out of it, and hopefully we can accomplish that. So that having been said, I talked about the quizzes and essays. That's all there is. There's no midterm. There's no final. Late work, nobody likes late work. Come on. But if you have a good reason that you can't get something done on time, then let me know, and I'm super easy to get along with. So how do you let me know? Well, my contact information first is my cell phone, so it's 419-345-7220. And I just noticed, I caught myself noticing how old I am, because I still say cell phone, like, my phone. So, but anyway, that's my number. So it's 419-345-7220. You can call or text me anytime. I prefer texts. But if you want to call, that's fine. Just don't do it in the middle of the night. Weekends are cool. If you're stuck on something, or you're, in crisis mode of some kind over an assignment, or you just need help, you need someone to talk to about any of this stuff, especially if you know more than I do, because some of it you probably will. Let me know. Let's have a conversation. And also, if you don't text, you can email, and it is Daniel, DANIEL .French, FRENCH, like the language, at utoledo.edu. So that's how you get in touch with me. So we did grades, we did contact information. I really don't have any office hours, and I won't be on campus in the fall at all. So, but virtually I'm available all the time. So you have my phone, you have my email, and again, if you get stuck on something or you have a question, some kind of crisis, let me know. I'm here to help you out. All right, cool. So next thing, what are we gonna talk about? So I'm looking at my timer. I'm not doing that bad, and I'm actually paying attention to it. So I have 7 minutes left unless I go over. If you watched the history primer video, and I don't know if you did or not yet, but it's I think it's in the first module. Anyway, you remember I had my globe out. I got to get myself situated here. I had my globe out, and I talked about continents and countries. So if you haven't watched Dr. Dan's history primer, it's in the course somewhere in the first module. So watch that. Because I talk about continents and countries, and obviously when we're looking at world history, that's important to know. I know most of you know all of that, but in case you don't, or if there's any doubt, you should check. So there's that part. The course really is, and I'm kind of going along with the textbook here. It's really divided into like 5 parts, and you think about this time period that we're studying. We're studying from basically, the end of the American Civil War all the way to current times. But I mean, just think about the technology alone that's come online in that period of time. Like, just a few little things like flight, electricity. I mean, think about that. And you could argue, although the railroad was, early 1800s, as far as becoming a thing and almost dying out, actually, in the 1900s as transportation. But communications, the telephone was invented in the late 1800s, and the telegraph in 1848. So you have all these new technologies coming online, and this new world in the making, sort of the first part of this course, is really about the rise of industrial society and the rise of technology. And a lot of it is about the West, the Western centric. I don't mean like California and Oregon or Colorado, that West. I mean the West, like Western Europe and the Americas. Okay, that's the Western Hemisphere, not really, but the West. And so this idea of industrial revolution. So if you just think about England and the U.S. alone, the industrial output as far as steel and the technology and the technologies of war, all of that stuff, it's a big deal. And then so we go through this colonial period, like around 1900, the turn of the century, Spanish-American War, and then colonial rule in India is just like a huge deal. It's even kind of hard to believe. So there's that part of imperialism, and then what's going on in the East in this period of time between I'm going to say between like 1750 and 1900, just to ground us in what's happening in China during that period of time. And it's very much based on Confucius and Confucianism, and this idea. It's a very insular society, striving for perfection, or the proper way to do things. So it really interesting stuff. And then the stuff we don't know about China, because not too many of us study it, and Sun Yat-sen in 1911, and this glorious revolution in China. That's kind of fascinating. I'm anxious to get into that. And then part 2 of the course is about cultures in collision. So again, I teach world history from 1500, I teach world history from 1900, and I teach American history. And this idea of cultures in collision, doesn't matter the era, it's always happening. And so certainly in this class, cultures in collision it's not like the old world's making the new world, but it's new industrial powerhouses. It's really these cultures and industrialization and communication, and sort of maybe the democratization of the world in some sense, as communication and transportation forces cultures together in some way. So cultures in collision. So that's like chapter 4 through chapter 6, and we get into World War One, which is the war to end all wars, and then next thing you know, one chapter later, there's World War Two, which is another war to end all wars, which actually my father fought in. So I can share some cool stories about that with you. And then part 3, across the ideological divide. Well, what does that mean? Well, when we talk about ideologies, basically in the context of history, especially if you're in the West here learning, we're talking about communism, and we're talking about capitalism or democracy, or however you want to describe this crazy economic system that we have in the U.S. So this idea of ideologies clashing, that's all about the Cold War, basically. And so the Cold War I grew up with, again, can share you a lot of stories. Some of you probably grew up with it as well, although probably not too many. Most of you were born at the end, after the end of the Cold War in 1989. But again, we'll talk about that. And the Cold War is the reason we have an internet, because of the development of the ARPANET, which was really developed by our Defense Department in the United States. But the internet itself, the World Wide Web, was not invented here, so don't think that it was, and we'll talk about that. And almost like the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of communism, 1989, that's the same time Tim Berners-Lee is working on the World Wide Web. And so there's probably not much of it. There's no correlation between the two, I'm sure, but we may explore that idea. So there's that part, and then finally, part 4, the last sort of big part of the text, is called Third World Rising, and it's really about Japan and China as far as industrial powerhouses go, and how after World War II, China certainly changes. I mean, my master's thesis was on Mao Zedong of China, so in that communist revolution and how that was changing. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk a little bit about the Middle East as well as we close out. And so much happening in the Middle East, and really constant turmoil since the 40s, and for good reasons. And again, we can't get into a lot of depth there, but maybe we can learn the roots of some of the conflicts that we're still living with today. So there's that. And then part 5 is always the challenge of the new millennium. Always, we're out of time. All right, I'm almost done. Don't worry. The challenge of the new millennium. And I was looking at the book, and I think I mentioned earlier, there's the picture of one of the jetliners flying into the World Trade Center, September 11th, 2001. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about what resulted. And I think it might be great, and maybe we'll blow off this last chapter, and we'll just talk about what's going on right now with Black Lives Matter, and talk about police reform and that sort of stuff. So whatever, and bring it up anytime. So that's it. If you have any questions, again, 419-345-7220. Give me a call and get the book so you can get started, because I think we have a quiz. I don't know. We have one fairly, I mean, if not next week, the week after for sure, or maybe even an essay. So look at the syllabus for sure, because there's a chance. Hold on, I can look at it. Hold on. Sorry about that. Let's see. Here it is. I'm on my computer. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we have a quiz due 8/30, so that is August 30th on chapter 1. So you are going to need the book. And if there's for some reason you can't get the book, or something's going on with financial aid, or who knows, let me know, and we'll do the best we can. We'll figure something out. But try to get the book and be ready for that quiz. And I'll talk about that in the next video. Before you take the quiz, we'll go over the chapter. So that's it for now. Have a great day. Be safe. Get in touch if you need anything. We're going to have a great time. I'm looking forward to working with all you guys. Take care now. Bye-bye.